The 1990s were a strange and unforgettable decade. The world was trying to be rational, efficient, digital. But European automakers, they decided to swim against the tide. While everyone was talking about economy and comfort, they decided to chase the impossible. It was the era when sedans, once sober and predictable, left their suits behind and put on racing gloves. Huge engines, absurd power, all-wheel drive, turbos, and superchargers, all inside cars that still took children to school and executives to the office. It was delightful madness. A time when Mercedes defied the laws of physics, BMW built machines with the soul of a violin, Jaguar roared back to life, and Audi dared to dream in aluminum. Every brand wanted the same title, the fastest sedan in Europe. And in this silent race, machines emerged that redefined what it meant to be a four-door car. Cars that not only drove fast, they told a story of ambition, bravery, and a kind of insanity that the modern world no longer allows. Today, we return to that era, the heyday of mechanical arrogance, metallic sound, and nights on the autobahns, to relive the 10 fastest European sedans of the 1990s, a time when accelerating was a form of prayer and speed a kind of faith. Let's begin. 10th, Jaguar XJR X308 1997. Top speed 155 miles per hour limited, 163 miles per hour actual. In the 1990s, Jaguar was roaring back. After decades of silence, failures, and internal crises, the British brand decided to prove that it still knew how to build something with soul, and the XJR was proof of that. On the outside, it looked like an aristocrat. Classic lines, round headlights, leather everywhere, and that "I don't need to rush" vibe. But all you had to do was turn the key, and the disguise fell away. Under the hood lay a 370 horsepower 4.0 supercharged V8, which woke up with a metallic whistle, the sound of the compressor reminding you that this was no ordinary Jaguar. The 5-speed automatic transmission delivered torque smoothly but steadily, pushing the sedan to a real 165 miles per hour. And the curious thing is that it did so without ever losing its composure. While other sedans screamed to get there, the XJR simply glided, calm, confident, almost ironic. It was the car a spy would drive, discreet, charming, and lethal. And despite all the luxury, the XJR had the soul of a race car, with firmer suspension, Brembo brakes, and a balance of traction that surprised those who thought Jaguar was still living in the past. At the time, it wasn't the fastest, nor the most modern, but it had something no other sedan could copy: presence. That blend power and elegance that only a true Jaguar can have. The XJR of the 1990s was more than a car. It was the roar of British tradition trying to survive in a world that was already beginning to go digital.
9th, Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG, 1998. Top speed, 155 miles per hour limited, 164 miles per hour actual. The late 1990s marked a turning point in the history of Mercedes-Benz. For decades, it had been synonymous with luxury, comfort, and discretion. But a new audience was emerging, restless and impatient. People who wanted the same refinement as an E-Class, but with the performance of a race car. The answer came in 1998, the E55 AMG, the brand's first mass-produced sedan to truly carry the wild DNA of AMG. Under the hood, the naturally aspirated 5.4-liter V8 delivered 354 horsepower and 53 kilogram FM of torque, figures that at the time placed this car above almost every executive sedan on the planet. The 5-speed automatic transmission may have seemed civilized, but in practice, It was relentless. 0 to 100 miles per hour happened in 5.4 seconds, and the actual speed measured in tests exceeded 160 miles per hour, even with the electronic limiter set at 155 miles per hour. But the big secret of the E55 was not its power. It was the way it hid its own strength. The W210 generation chassis still maintained the comfort and sound insulation typical of Mercedes, but AMG changed everything: suspension, wheel geometry, brakes, and the result was a grand tourer disguised as an executive car. It was the kind of car that could take the boss to work during the day and humiliate sports cars at night on the Autobahn. Discreet, powerful, almost intimidating, the E55 AMG was the most elegant message Mercedes ever sent to the world. We know how to make luxury cars, but we also know how to make them fly.
8th, BMW M5 E39 1998. Top speed 155 miles per hour limited, 175 miles per hour actual. In the 1990s, BMW was at the height of its self-confidence. The Munich-based brand had found the perfect balance between luxury, precision, and brutality. And no car represented this harmony better than the M5 E39, a sedan that seemed civilized until you put your right foot down. Under the hood was the legendary 4.9-liter, 400-horsepower S62 V8, an engine that revved like a finely tuned musical instrument. It was the first M5 with 8 cylinders, and perhaps the last to carry that analog purity before electronics took the wheel. The acceleration was fierce, but what was most impressive was the way it danced around corners. The 5 Series chassis was redesigned with the soul of a coupe, and the heavy, communicative steering made the driver feel every grain of asphalt. It was as if the car was saying, "I'll take you fast, but you come along for the ride." The top speed, limited to 155 miles per hour, was a mere formality. In tests, the M5 easily exceeded 175 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest and most balanced sedans in history. But the real charm lay elsewhere, in the way it blended German discipline and pure emotion, as if it had been built not by engineers, but by mechanical musicians. The E39 wasn't just a fast car. It was the perfect balance between luxury and controlled insanity, the pinnacle of BMW before the digital age, and, for many purists, the last true M5.
7th, Audi S8 D2 1996. Top speed 155 miles per hour limited, 175 miles per hour actual. The Audi S8 of the 1990s was the kind of car you didn't notice until it disappeared in your rearview mirror. Too fast for a sedan, too quiet for a sports car. And perhaps that's why it became one of the greatest symbols of German engineering of that decade. Underneath that aluminum body, light, sturdy, and ahead of its time, was a 4.2-liter V8 with 340 horsepower. But the secret wasn't just in the power. It was in the Quattro all-wheel drive, which made the S8 stick to the asphalt as if gravity had been increased. While its rivals skidded off the line, the S8 shot forward with almost surgical precision. It went from 0 to 100 in 5.5 seconds, and its top speed exceeded 175 miles per hour, something almost absurd for a luxury sedan in 1996. It was the kind of car that didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Serious, discreet, and frighteningly efficient, the S8 was the silent predator of the autobahns. And of course, there was the technological charm, the lightweight and rigid aluminum chassis of the D2 platform, which anticipated the future. A car that looked cold on the outside,
but hid a stubborn heart and a soul that only those who drove it understand. In cinema, it gained fame in the movie Ronin, in one of the most realistic car chases ever filmed. And there, the world saw what the S8 was capable of when someone dared to provoke it. Sixth, Lotus Carlton, 1990. Top speed, 285 kilometers per hour, real. In 1990, Lotus decided to defy common sense, and the result was one of the most insane sedans the world has ever seen. The Carlton, or Omega Lotus, was the typical wolf in sheep's clothing. Discreet, elegant, and completely out of control. On the outside, it looked like an executive sedan. Inside, it hit a 3.6-liter twin-turbo inline six-cylinder engine with 382 horsepower and 58 kilograms of torque. It was too much power for a car that still used rear-wheel drive and a 6-speed manual transmission borrowed from the Corvette ZR1. The result? 0 to 100 in 5.2 seconds and a top speed of 177 miles per hour. Numbers that left Ferrari, Porsche, and even some Lamborghinis looking stunned. But the funniest part of the story is that the world wasn't ready for it. The Carlton was accused by the British press of putting morals at risk because it was too fast for a street car. Insurance companies refused to cover accidents, and even the police complained there was no police car that could catch up with it. And yet, Lotus maintained its British style. Leather interior, wooden steering wheel, and that dose of cool elegance, as if to say, yes, I'm dangerous, but I do it with class. Today, the Carlton is remembered as the sedan that made the world rethink what it meant to be too fast. And for a few years, it was, in fact, the fastest of them all.
Fifth, Alpina B10 Bi-Turbo, 1989 to 1994. Top speed, 290 kilometers per hour, real. There was a time when BMW built perfect machines, but still within reason. And that's where Alpina came in, a small German workshop with a simple mission: to make the impossible drivable. The B10 Bi-Turbo was born in 1989 based on the E34 5 Series and carried a 3.5-liter six-cylinder engine under the hood, tuned to the limits of sanity. Two Garrett turbos breathed life into the engine, delivering 360 horsepower and 52 kilograms force of torque, a brutality that made it the fastest sedan in the world in the early 1990s. But the really impressive number is another: 290 kilometers per hour. That's in a four-door car with leather, air conditioning, and room for the whole family. The secret was in the handcrafted tuning. Each unit was assembled by hand, tested on the track, and refined as if it were a piece of German watchmaking. The suspension was firm, but without sacrificing comfort. The manual transmission was as precise as a razor. The B10 wasn't just a car, it was a statement. A message from Alpina to BMW saying, this is how you make a perfect and dangerous sedan. At the time, European magazines were incredulous. It outperformed supercars, cost a fortune, and yet it was so discreet that it could go unnoticed in traffic. And perhaps that was the scariest thing: the elegance with which it hid its fury. The Alpina B10 Bi-Turbo was the technical and emotional limit of sedans in the 1990s. After it, everyone became a little more careful when playing with the word fast.
Fourth, Mercedes-Benz E60 AMG, W124, 1994. Before the name AMG became synonymous with sports luxury, it meant something more raw, more artisanal. It was the signature of restless engineers, men who worked at night in hidden workshops, transforming elegant cars into dangerous creatures. The E60 AMG, based on the W124 generation E-Class, was born from this philosophy. It was a kind of wolf in a tailored suit.
Under the hood was a naturally aspirated 6.0-liter V8, derived from the same engine that powered the legendary 500E. Only here, every component was pushed beyond its limits. The result? 381 horsepower, 59 kilograms FOM torque, and a brutality that made this 1.7-ton sedan reach a real 295 kilometers per hour. No turbos, no all-wheel drive, no tricks, just pure power, channeled to the rear wheels with the precision of a scalpel. It was a car you didn't drive, you negotiated with it. The deep roar of the V8 sounded like a threat, and the 4-speed automatic transmission a provocation, because every shift was accompanied by a jolt, a reminder, don't mess with me. The E60 AMG was born at a time when Mercedes didn't need to prove anything to anyone, and perhaps that's why it was so dangerous. There were no electronics to save the driver, no stability control, no filter between the foot and hell. But what made this car special was its elegance. It could cross Germany at almost 300 kilometers per hour with the same comfort as a leather and polished wood lounge. It was, in essence, the last truly analog Mercedes, the last gasp of an era when luxury and brutality still went hand in hand.
Third, Bentley Continental T, 1996. Top speed, 300 kilometers per hour, real. In the 1990s, Bentley still carried the weight of the past. It was seen as a traditional luxury brand, far from the racetrack, aimed at bankers, aristocrats, and gentlemen in thick suits. But suddenly, it decided to remind the world that it was born from racing, and that it still knew how to make a car go fast. The result was the Continental T, a 2.5-ton, hand-built coupe with an engine that sounded like a steam locomotive. A 6.75-liter twin-turbo V8 delivering 426 horsepower and an absurd 89 cubic meters force of torque. It was the kind of power you didn't measure in horsepower. You measured it in mountains moving under the hood. And even with all that weight, the Continental T reached a true 300 kilometers per hour, transforming British luxury into pure mechanical insanity. Each unit was assembled by hand in crew, with a level of detail that bordered on obsession. The dashboard was covered in polished wood, the leather smelled of tradition, and the silence inside the cabin made the roar of the engine seem distant, almost respectful. But the truth is, it wasn't gentle. The torque came on so abruptly that the car seemed to twist its own chassis with each acceleration. It was more of a physical challenge than a comfortable experience. The Bentley Continental T was, in essence, the last violent aristocrat. A car that didn't ask permission. It just pushed the world behind it when the accelerator was touched. And, ironically, it was also the first Bentley to break the symbolic 300 kilometers per hour barrier, decades before the brand returned to the top with the Continental GT, a car that proved, with class and brutality, that even royalty knows how to lose control when it wants to.